Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material, a stack of articles, biographies, and research, and deliver the essential, high-impact knowledge you need.
We are definitely undertaking a monumental task today.
We are. We're charting the career of Benjamin Geza Affleck Bolt. And this isn't just a chronology, It's really an attempt to understand a professional life that's been lived, often painfully, right in the extreme glare of the public eye.
It truly is a study in professional resilience. I mean, we are looking at an individual who has not just survived, but has fundamentally reshaped his career multiple times. From this Oscar-winning wonderkin to, well, a tabloid casualty, and then back again to a universally acclaimed director.
It's an incredible arc.
And our sources today are really comprehensive. They allow us to dissect his 2 Academy Awards, his 2 BAFTAs, 3 Golden Globes, all of that, alongside his battles with addiction, his deep roots in Boston, and his surprisingly serious philanthropic and political commitments.
So our mission today is to trace this whole evolution. From a child actor raised in this complicated intellectual household to becoming the youngest Oscar-winning screenwriter ever. Then we have to unpack those catastrophic tabloid years that, they almost ended his career.
They really almost did.
And finally, we chart his emergence as, an auteur and now the CEO of a modern production company. We're specifically looking for those aha moments where his personal struggles really transformed into professional breakthroughs.
That's the critical linkage, We want to show you how the lowest points, the relapses, the divorce, the intense media ridicule, they didn't just slow him down.
No.
They became the foundational subject matter and the necessary catalyst for the serious, respected work that he's doing now. It's just a compelling narrative about adapting failure into artistic fuel.
Okay, so let's unpack this blueprint then.
Yeah.
Because to understand Ben Affleck, you have to understand the Cambridge, Massachusetts Foundation. He was born in Berkeley, California, back in 1972. But he moved to Cambridge at age 3. And that environment, much more than Hollywood, that's the core of his identity.
And that environment was one of constant sort of inherent tension. On one side, you have his mother, Christopher Ann Chris Bolt.
Right.
She was Harvard educated, worked as an elementary school teacher, and she was firmly rooted in this politically active liberal milieu surrounded by the arts. But she had these very practical working class concerns. She worried that acting was insecure and frivolous.
That immediately sets up a kind of push-pull dynamic. And then you introduce his father, Timothy Byers Affleck.
Yeah.
And the sources describe him as an aspiring playwright who was, and I'm quoting here, mostly unemployed. His jobs, they paint this incredibly varied picture of blue-collar life. Carpenter, auto mechanic, bookie.
Electrician, bartender.
And eventually, a janitor at Harvard, of all places.
That tension between the intellectual liberal elite and the daily grind of hard, sporadic labor, that is the intellectual DNA of all of his Boston set films.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're talking about the class dynamics of Good Will Hunting or the moral complexity of the town, it makes his upbringing just incredibly rich in contrast.
But beneath that intellectual and artistic environment was a severe chronic problem that ran through the household, which was his father's alcoholism. And the source material doesn't pull punches. It states his father drank, quote, all day, every day.
Just imagine the impact on the children. It was profound. Affleck revealed he felt a real sense of relief when his parents divorced when he was 11 and his father left the home.
Yeah.
And this early, just unavoidable exposure to the destructive power of addiction is, well, it's a key precursor to the personal challenges he would face decades later.
And what's fascinating here is the full arc of his father's story.
Yeah.
He continued to struggle, even became homeless for 2 years.
Right.
But eventually he found his path to sobriety and maintained it for 12 years while working as an addiction counselor at a rehabilitation facility.
It's the ultimate complicated family dynamic. It shows the devastating consequences of addiction, but also, crucially, the possibility of profound recovery.
And using that experience to help others.
Exactly. This template of failure, descent, and then service through recovery, it clearly imprinted on the young Affleck.
Meanwhile, you've got these 2 boys, Affleck and his close friend since he was 8 years old, Matt Damon, growing up in this artistic environment, making home movies.
Affleck was just intensely curious. We have that great detail that he learned Spanish while traveling in Mexico for a year at age 13 for a children's television program.
The second voyage of the Meanie.
That's the one. It's a sign of a highly motivated young person. But professionally, the shared obsession with Damon drove everything. They attended Cambridge Rindge and Latin High School together, and that bond became their business strategy.
We're talking about real dedication here. The source mentions they traveled to New York for auditions together.
Right.
Pooling their money in a joint bank account just to cover train tickets, plane tickets, headshots, all of it.
And they both attempted college. Affleck tried Spanish at the University of Vermont, Middle Eastern Affairs at Occidental College. But Hollywood was clearly the primary joint focus.
Their early acting efforts really laid the groundwork. He started with that PBS series, The Voyage of the Mimi, back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Then in 1993, he played the high school bully in Dazed and Confused. What's interesting about this role is that the director, Richard Linklater, specifically wanted a likable actor to play the villain.
He needed someone who was big and imposing, but also so smart and full of life, which is exactly what Affleck brought to it.
That likability was the key to his next major step with Kevin Smith. In 1997's Chasing Amy, Affleck takes the lead role.
And gets praise for his suave good looks with cool comic timing. This was really the first time critics acknowledged his potential to be more than just a character actor or a bully. He could carry a complex, charming role.
But the real professional genesis, the moment that defines his entire career, is Good Will Hunting.
Oh, absolutely. The script started in 1992 as just a 40-page piece Damon had written while he was at Harvard.
Right.
They worked on it in earnest when Damon moved into Affleck's LA apartment. And the original intention, according to the sources, was just to create a powerful acting reel for themselves to use in auditions.
And what's so fascinating is how quickly that reel turned into this massive commodity. They sold to Castle Rock in '94, but then had to fight tooth and nail for creative control.
Yeah, and they eventually landed at Miramax.
And the subsequent release in 1997 was just a phenomenon. It earned critical praise for its heart, its dialogue, and the authenticity to that Boston setting they knew so intimately.
And it led to that defining moment at the Academy Awards. Affleck remains the youngest writer at the age of 25 ever to win an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay.
Just think about the pressure that puts on a person.
It's immense.
He wasn't just launched as a successful actor. He was instantly branded a prodigy, a serious creative force, alongside his best friend, who was only 27 at the time.
It's the highest possible peak to start a career on, but it simultaneously created this impossible standard.
Exactly. The world now expected him to be an artistic auteur, even as Hollywood was sizing him up purely as a leading man.
And that dual identity immediately created friction. Which brings us to Section 2, which tracks his ascent into that A-list leading man status from roughly 1998 to 2002.
This is where the Hollywood machine starts to smooth out the rough edges of the talented writer.
Right, and that smoothing process started very, very explicitly with Armageddon in 1998.
Director Michael Bay, he initially thought Affleck was, quote, a geek after his screen test.
He did. But producer Jerry Bruckheimer, one of Hollywood's biggest power brokers, he saw the raw potential.
And Bruckheimer insisted he be cast, but with preconditions that really defined that era.
Oh, yeah. Affleck was reportedly required to lose weight, get a tan, and famously have his teeth capped before filming began.
That's not casting an actor. That's engineering a blockbuster commodity.
It is, and it signals a loss of that creative control he and Damon had enjoyed with Good Will Hunting.
He still sought out diverse projects during this period, though. He appeared in the Best Picture winner, Shakespeare in Love.
Right, sharing a Screen Actors Guild Award for that.
And he got positive notices for more dramatic, intimate work, like Bounce in 2000, where critics praised his understated intensity.
But the seeds of his later critical downturn were already being sown. Pearl Harbor in 2001 was a massive financial success, but it was critically slammed. And he also took over the coveted CIA analyst role, Jack Ryan, in The Sum of All Fears.
A character previously defined by the gravity of, Harrison Ford and Alec Baldwin.
Exactly. And critics widely agreed he lacked the gravitas needed for the spy thriller. It suggested he was sometimes miscast or maybe just stretched thin by the relentless demands of being an A-list star.
What's so fascinating here is that even as his on-screen quality was kind of wavering, he was trying to reclaim creative control through the business side.
Yes. In 2000, he co-founded Live Planet.
With Damon and two others. The aim was to integrate the nascent internet into film and TV production.
This was a genuinely ambitious move for the time. This is long before digital streaming became the standard. And the results were mixed, which illustrates the risk of being an early adopter.
Their biggest success was the documentary series Project Greenlight,
which was a great concept. It gave struggling filmmakers a chance to direct, and it earned 3 Emmy nominations. It was a true success for their production arm.
But their other venture, Push, Nevada, from 2002, was a sign of overambition. It was this ABC mystery drama that included a complicated viewer participation game tied to the plot where you could actually win money.
And it was quickly canceled due to low ratings. It was just too complex for network television at the time. But it shows his willingness to pioneer new, high-risk business models, which is a thread we'll see return later.
Now we arrive at the defining period of his initial career, the 2003 to 2005 downturn.
And this wasn't just a professional slide. It was a cultural phenomenon, fueled by his relationship with Jennifer Lopez, creating the infamous Bennifer nickname.
This intense, all-consuming celebrity exposure. The first celebrity portmanteau. It was something new for Hollywood.
It really was.
GQ magazine in 2003 labeled him the world's most overexposed actor. And suddenly, he wasn't just an actor, he was a character in the daily public soap opera.
And this public scrutiny coincided precisely with his biggest professional failures. This amplification of failure is key.
Let's look at the films. First, Daredevil 2003.
Right. Commercially successful, but Affleck, despite being a lifelong comic fan, later admitted it was the only film he regretted making. He felt disconnected from the material, lost in the production chaos.
But the true cultural whipping post was Jiggly.
Oh, Jiggly.
Starring Lopez, the film was almost uniformly panned. It became shorthand for box office disaster.
Yeah.
Critics suggested Affleck lacked the chops or the charm to save that train wreck of a script.
Yeah, even in this low point, you see his ingrained loyalty. He consistently defended the director, Martin Brest.
He did.
He described him as one of the really great directors, suggesting the failure was rooted elsewhere, maybe in that media frenzy surrounding the relationship.
The failure was so complete that he and Lopez won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Screen Combo.
And the losses continued with Paycheck and Jersey Girl. The consensus was just brutal. Critics noted his undeniable talent seemed to have curdled as his tabloid notoriety has spread.
The narrative of his failure was so firmly established that the Los Angeles Times published a definitive piece on the downfall of his career in late 2004. They were effectively declaring him professionally finished.
It was a breaking point. The intense negative press, the collapsing film quality, the postponement of his wedding to Lopez, it all led him to take a significant career break.
And this descent into pariah status forced him to reevaluate his entire approach to Hollywood.
He had failed as a machine-made leading man, and that failure, as we will see, provided the necessary humility and drive for his subsequent greatest professional achievements.
The narrative of the Affleck comeback is, I think, maybe the most instructive part of this deep dive.
I agree.
It didn't start with a giant blockbuster. It started with a quiet, reflective role in 2006, playing the Superman actor George Reeves in the biopic Hollywoodland.
This was such a highly strategic move, whether it was conscious or not. He found success portraying a figure who was grappling with fame and tragedy, who was deeply misunderstood by the public.
Drawing heavily on his own lived experience of being misrepresented.
Absolutely. And critics were immediately on board. Peter Travers described it as feeling nuanced work from an actor some of us had prematurely written off.
It was instantly corrective. He won the Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival, and he got a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He proved he could still deliver profound performances, but the material had to be serious and personal.
And simultaneously, he made that permanent shift in focus to directing, leveraging the experience from Live Planet, and of course, the screenwriting win.
And 2007, he delivered his feature directorial debut, Gone Baby Gone,
which he co-wrote, based on the Dennis Lefane book, and it starred his brother Casey.
The film was critically celebrated. It established his directorial voice. Serious, uncompromising, focused on the ethical ambiguities and the working-class struggle of the Boston streets he knew.
And reviewers praised his sensitivity to real struggle, suggesting he handled these serious themes of child abduction and moral choice with real maturity.
He followed that up with The Town in 2010, which he directed, co-wrote, and starred in. Another adaptation, this time from a Chuck Hogan novel.
And it was another surprise box office success. It confirmed the formula worked. Grounded Boston crime drama rooted in authenticity.
By this point, critics were no longer hedging their bets. A.O. Scott celebrated his skill and self-confidence as a serious director.
Roger Ebert noted he has the stuff of a real director, demonstrating a natural feel for pacing and tone. He had successfully transitioned from being a criticized actor to a respected auteur.
This brings us to the zenith of his directorial career, Argo, 2012. The political thriller about the Iran hostage crisis. He directed and starred.
This film was a cultural moment. It showed his ability to handle complex historical material with blockbuster execution.
The acclaim was unanimous. Anthony Lane famously summarized the perception shift, writing that the film offered further proof that we were wrong about Ben Affleck.
And it swept the major awards. It secured the Academy Award, the Golden Globe, and the BAFTA for Best Picture.
And this is what's so fascinating, it also led to that infamous awards season snub.
Right. While Argo is winning Best Picture across the board, the highest industry honor, Affleck himself, was not nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director.
It's an almost perfect dichotomy. Yet, he still won Best Director at the BAFTAs, the Directors Guild of America, the DGA, and the Golden Globes.
Think about the significance of that. The DGA is the ultimate peer review award. It's the directors themselves voting.
So his peers are saying he's the best.
Exactly. By winning the DGA, BAFTA, and Globe, but missing the Oscar nod, he became the first director ever to achieve that combination. It underscored that while the industry at large, because his peers, the international community fully embraced him as a top-tier filmmaker, the Academy.
Maybe he's still harboring that tabloid actor stigma.
Exactly. They were hesitant to give him the individual artist's prize.
The snub became a huge talking point, which gave him this powerful narrative of the underdog fighting for respect, even while holding the Best Picture statue.
And this period concluded with a final flourish. In 2014, he was recognized with the Razzie Redeemer Award.
An honor specifically for past Razzie winners who have gone on to do good work. It truly symbolized the completion of his professional resurrection.
And with that slate cleared, his acting choices became stronger, more self-aware. David Fincher cast him in Gone Girl in 2014.
And Fincher openly said he cast Affleck partly because he knew the pain of being misrepresented, of being publicly judged, which was the exact theme of the movie.
Right. So how exactly did that lived experience translate into the performance on screen? Can we pinpoint the moments where that mask of public composure fractures?
The source analysis points out that Affleck was perfectly cast as the husband, Nick Dunn, precisely because he could embody that facade of generic, handsome competence that the public initially trusts, only for it to be slowly peeled back to reveal complexity and potential guilt. His real-life experience allowed him to communicate that subtle exhaustion and frustration of being constantly watched and judged,
making his performance terrific and just deeply layered.
Then came the high-risk gamble, playing Batman in the DC Extended Universe, starting in 2016.
A move some critics called a bewildering choice. There was a fear he was returning to those machine-made leading man roles that caused his first downfall.
And that choice garnered immediate turbulence again. He won a Golden Raspberry Award, his second one for Worst Screen Combo, this time with Henry Cavill for Batman v Superman.
It felt like his critical goodwill was perpetually fragile.
Compounding this was his next directorial effort, Live by Night, in 2016, which he wrote, directed, co-produced, and starred in. It was a period gangster piece, another slice of Boston crime.
But it failed commercially and critically. It was described as a fascinating mess.
And the stress mounted, leading into the highly publicized trouble surrounding the Justice League reshoots in 2017.
He later described that on-set experience as difficult due to immense directorial changes and, crucially, his own struggles with addiction returning. One critic noted he looks like he'd rather be almost anywhere else.
So it sounds like 2017 and 2018 were this double failure. A professional collapse coinciding with a deep personal relapse. How much did the stress of the DC machine contribute to the return of his addiction struggles?
The sources strongly imply they were inextricably linked. The massive, all-consuming commitment of a superhero franchise, the public scrutiny, the chaos of the production, it created an intense pressure cooker.
Which led to him stepping down entirely from directing and starring in the Batman.
Yeah, he said he couldn't crack it and had lost the necessary passion. This professional retreat really paved the way for the next intensely personal chapter, which was focused on health and recovery.
And that professional collapse was the catalyst for the necessary personal focus. As we mentioned, the foundation for his alcoholism struggle was laid early with his father.
Right.
Affleck first achieved sobriety in his mid-20s. He even stated in a 1998 interview that alcohol was dangerous for him, and he received residential treatment in 2001.
He managed to maintain that initial sobriety for a couple of years, and then he attempted to drink relatively normally for about 8 years, which many recovering alcoholics try to do.
But gradually that consumption increased until he realized he was drinking until he would pass out nightly.
And his relapses, unlike the private struggles of his father, were repeatedly documented by the press. It amplified the public narrative of his vulnerability.
He received residential treatment in 2017 and then again in 2018, the latter following a widely publicized relapse and intervention.
And the intense public scrutiny was complicated by the end of his marriage to Jennifer Garner. While they finalized the divorce in 2018, Affleck later described it with raw honesty, calling it the biggest regret of my life and a painful experience.
This vulnerability became central to the subsequent narrative.
And here is that remarkable pivot where the personal pain becomes professional art. In 2020, he starred in the sports drama The Way Back,
playing a high school basketball coach who is a recovering alcoholic. The themes were obviously close to home.
The commitment to this role was just extraordinary. The sources confirmed the movie was shot literally in the days immediately after he left rehab.
Yeah.
He worked with a sober coach present on set, and he even put his salary in escrow, essentially tying his payment to his sobriety during the high-risk production.
Wait, so he worked with a sober coach and put his salary in escrow for The Way Back. That's intense. Does that reflect a genuine commitment to the craft or an acknowledgement that he was still high risk for the production?
It's likely both, but it certainly demonstrates profound honesty and vulnerability. And critics universally praise this performance for its subtlety, its rawness, and its naturalism. They called it his best work.
It's a compelling case study in turning lived, recent trauma, that raw emotional scar tissue, into profound artistic output.
Effectively leveraging his lowest public moment to redefine his reputation as a serious actor.
It's a powerful message, yet his current philosophy on addiction is surprisingly cautionary about public dialogue.
Right. He identifies as a recovering alcoholic following a 12-step program. He finds the program's faith-based aspect and Buddhist teachings helpful, despite being agnostic.
But he advises other actors to generally avoid discussing addiction publicly.
Stating pragmatically, you don't need to be anybody's poster child. And this reflects the double-edged sword of his own highly publicized recovery journey. While it fueled his art, the public nature of the struggle often overshadowed the craft itself.
Moving beyond health, the professional shifts continued into the 2020s, with him finding success primarily in these highly praised supporting roles that require genuine character depth.
For instance, in 2021, he co-wrote The Last Duel with Damon and Nicole Holofcener. But it was his supporting performance as the hedonistic and morally corrupt aristocrat Peter II, Count of Alençon, that stole the show.
Critics noted how wonderfully skeezy he was in the role.
Which is a sign of genuine versatility and comfort, stepping away from that traditional leading man center stage.
And he received a Golden Globe and Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for The Tender Bar in 2021, where he played a substitute father figure.
And director George Clooney cast him because he recognized that Affleck is very intelligent and he can also come off as the big Goomba. This versatility and depth is key to his current phase.
But the most significant organizational shift, pivot as dramatic as his move into directing in 2007, is the co-founding of Artists Equity with Matt Damon in 2023.
This is where his early ambitions with Live Planet finally mature.
They call it an independent production company with a revolutionary aim: to share profits with all stakeholders. Affleck is the CEO, and he stated his intention to work exclusively for this company as a filmmaker moving forward.
That sounds like a massive declaration of independence from the traditional studio system.
It is, but we need to define the mechanics to truly appreciate the claim. When we talk about sharing profit with all stakeholders, this is a direct response to decades of traditional Hollywood studio accounting.
Explain that.
In the old system, only the biggest stars and executives receive back-end profits. Everyone else, from crew members to supporting writers, is often cut out because studios claim the film never technically reached profitability after costs and fees are factored in.
So, if Artists Equity truly succeeds, what kind of pressure does that put on the established studio hierarchy? Does it truly redistribute power, or just centralize it further with A-list producers?
Well, the claim is redistribution. The model takes less upfront money from investors, and in exchange, it offers immediate or much earlier back-end participation to the broader creative and technical team.
So it's like we, the producers and stars, will take slightly less guaranteed money up front, but we will share the risks and the rewards more equitably with the people who actually make the film.
Exactly. And if successful, it undermines those traditional opaque accounting practices that have infuriated talent for decades.
Their first test case was successful. Air from 2023, Affleck's fifth directorial project about Nike's creation of Air Jordan.
It was released through the company, was well reviewed, and it signaled a strong start for this new venture, both critically and commercially.
And before we transition to his civic life, we have to close the chapter on the two iterations of Bennifer.
Right. The first relationship, 2002 to 2004, was so saturated by the media. Affleck later noted it was rooted in racism, classism, and sexism.
And the couple postponed their 2003 wedding due to excessive media attention.
And the second run, which began in 2021, saw them marry in 2022, only to separate in April 2024 and divorce in February 2025.
Affleck later stated there was no scandal, no soap opera, no intrigue, maintaining a deliberate emphasis on quiet dignity amidst the public spectacle.
It speaks volumes to the duality we keep coming back to. This is a person whose intimate life has been weaponized by the media, yet who maintains this relentless drive for control and equity in his professional sphere.
Culminating in a new business model that seeks to change the power structure of the very industry that both built and nearly destroyed him.
We have to dedicate significant time to the depth of Affleck's civic engagement, which is often completely overshadowed by the Hollywood narrative.
It really is. He describes himself as moderately liberal, raised in a very strong union household.
And his commitment is lifelong. It started with advocating for his own family. His father was a janitor at Harvard, and in 2000, Affleck spoke at a rally supporting an increased living wage for all campus workers.
This wasn't abstract liberalism, it was personal advocacy rooted in his upbringing.
He's been a registered Democrat since 1992 and has actively campaigned for presidential nominees, from Gore and Kerry to Obama and Clinton.
For Clinton, in 2016, he was a designated Hillblazer, which means he personally raised over $100,000 for the campaign.
And he's been outspoken on specific cultural and civil rights issues for decades. He's pro-choice. He was an early supporter of legalizing gay marriage.
And back in 2004, he stated that it was outrageous and offensive to suggest transgender people weren't entitled to equal rights.
He's also been a strong voice against prejudice. In 2008, he questioned the legitimacy of conspiracy theories claiming Obama was Muslim or Arab.
Right, stressing that the acceptance of those claims as legitimate political slurs was fundamentally problematic.
The conversation that brought his views on political ethics and religion to the viral stage was his 2014 debate with Bill Maher. Affleck firmly defended the idea that no one should be stereotyped on the basis of their race or religion, calling this one of the most fundamental tenets of liberal thought.
And the source material emphasizes that while the debate was heated, Affleck's core argument was an unwavering defense of universal liberal principles against prejudice.
His commitment to advocacy continued recently when he signed the Artists for Ceasefire open letter in 2023 regarding the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, aligning himself with a major current political cause.
And while he frequently expressed interest in political office early on, he seems to have channeled that energy into lobbying and hands-on advocacy.
That advocacy is perhaps best exemplified by the Eastern Congo Initiative, or ECI, which he co-founded in 2010 after extensive travel in the region.
And this is not passive celebrity charity work.
Right. So how does ECI operate? Is it traditional large-scale aid distribution, or is it something more nuanced?
It's highly nuanced. ECI is a grant-making and advocacy-based nonprofit focused specifically on supporting Congolese-led community-based charities.
So the philosophy is that resources are best utilized when directed by local leaders who understand the specific needs on the ground.
Precisely. They provide training, resources to farmer cooperatives. They've even leveraged corporate partnerships, like one with Starbucks, to ensure market access for local products.
And his personal advocacy efforts are remarkable. He has written op-eds for major publications like the New York Times and the Washington Post to drive awareness.
More significantly, he has testified multiple times before congressional subcommittees, including the House Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, and Human Rights, on issues facing Eastern Congo.
We have to remember the commitment this involves. This isn't just showing up for a photo op.
No. Testifying before Congress requires intense preparation, a deep understanding of complex policy issues, and a willingness to withstand bipartisan scrutiny. It demonstrates a foundational belief in using his platform for substantive policy change, not just awareness.
He also maintains long-standing commitment to other causes, notably the AT Children's Project.
He befriended a young boy with the disease in 1998, and later testified alongside him before Congress in 2001, urging support for stem cell research.
And additionally, he supports various military and veteran causes like Paralyzed Veterans of America and Operation Gratitude. And he serves on Feeding America's Entertainment Council,
where he organized an online celebrity poker tournament during the COVID-19 pandemic to raise funds for hunger relief. The breadth of this work is substantial.
Finally, we have to touch on the controversies that tested his public image and accountability, namely the Ancestry scandal and the Me Too allegations.
The Finding Your Roots Ancestry scandal was significant because it involved issues of journalistic and editorial integrity at PBS.
Right. When he appeared on the show in 2014, researchers found that an ancestor of his owned 25 slaves in Georgia.
And leaked emails later showed Affleck felt uncomfortable about this segment, and it was ultimately removed from the broadcast.
So why was this considered a violation of standards?
PBS launched an internal investigation that concluded Affleck exerted improper influence over the editorial process, violating PBS standards regarding independence and integrity.
So the violation wasn't just hiding a personal detail, it was interfering with the factual dissemination of historical information.
Exactly, which was damaging to the show's and the network's credibility. It led to the show being temporarily postponed, and it showed the line where celebrity power could potentially compromise journalistic principles.
And regarding Me Too, he faced accusations of inappropriate behavior, including one from actress Hillary Burton dating back to 2003.
His response was immediate and public accountability via Twitter, stating simply, "I acted inappropriately toward Mrs. Burton, and I sincerely apologize."
It was a swift admission of fault, which was notable in that period of reckoning.
He also had to address the pervasive allegations surrounding Harvey Weinstein, given his early career successes with Miramax.
Right.
He pledged to donate future profits from his early Miramax films to charities supporting sexual assault victims. Actress Rose McGowan later claimed Affleck knew about Weinstein's behavior after she told him she was assaulted in 1997.
And while Affleck initially denied inferring she was attacked, the narrative shifted.
It did. And he later issued a stronger statement. "I believe Rose. I support her. I really like and admire her tenacity." This demonstrates a messy but ultimately public effort towards ongoing moral reckoning and accountability regarding past associations.
So what does this all mean when we synthesize the duality of Benjamin Geza Affleck-Bolt's life? We have this decorated A-list writer-director who leveraged his absolute professional and personal low point.
Right.
The tabloid years, defined by addiction and failed relationships, to fuel a resurgence built on intensely vulnerable and self-reflective roles.
The career is a masterclass in adaptation. He moved from being a product engineered for Armageddon to an auteur controlling the narrative in Argo, and finally to an independent producer attempting to reshape the business model itself with artists' equity.
In his most respected work, Hollywoodland, The Way Back, Gone Girl, it's all rooted in the lived experience of failure, vulnerability, and navigating public judgment.
He constantly sought new means of creative control, transitioning from the co-writer of his breakout script to founding Live Planet to explore media integration to directing massive critical hits.
And all the while, maintaining significant, hands-on political and philanthropic commitments in areas like Eastern Congo.
The narrative of personal descent becoming artistic material is strong, but the story of the business pivot is equally important. He is leveraging his star power, which was almost destroyed by the traditional studio system, to build a system that claims to be fairer and more equitable for the next generation of creative talent.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on. Given Affleck's recent dedication to artists' equity, the production company he runs with Matt Damon, aiming to share profits with all stakeholders, does this model represent a fundamental democratic shift in how major celebrity power brokers are approaching the traditional hierarchical studio system?
Or is artists' equity merely a highly strategic maneuver, built upon all the lessons learned from decades spent navigating and surviving the traditional Hollywood machine?
And does it ultimately reinforce the power and control of the A-list talent, just packaged differently?
The question is whether true reform can come from within the star system it seeks to disrupt. It's a fascinating legacy for someone who was once written off as a complete failure.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.